Welcome back into Exit 99 Sports. As always, my name is Caleb Deloach. He is Cody Hinkebine, and we are, well, in football terms at the moment, we're in week 3 of the fall sports season here. A lot of great action this week in football. Cody and I, for those that don't know yet, we do radio for Jackson, so we had a very, very fun, entertaining game that we went up to at Edwardsville this past weekend. So a good week, another eventful week, a bunch of teams playing over the weekend and all sports, not just football. But we will start things with football, Cody. But like I said, we went up to Edwardsville. Jackson, for those that don't know, got over the hump finally, knocked off Edwardsville up there on the road. That's our 3rd straight season up at Edwardsville. Felt good to make that 3-hour drive home at 1 o'clock in the morning a little bit better whenever they come away with the win.
Yeah, you got a lot of great fan base at Jackson. Few probably thought that they would start this season 3-0, but very good start to the season. You play 3 high-caliber teams from 3 different states, and Jackson fortunate enough to be 3-0, along with a couple other SEMO Conference teams we'll get to. So
yeah, and Cape came up with a big victory. Saxony dropped their first game of the season, so our teams around here, mixed results, but we'll start, I think we'll start, we'll start from Saxony and then work our way up my list that I have written down here. But we'll start with Saxony. Saxony did, like I mentioned, just drop their first game of the season, 36-30. It was an overtime loss it was in Sparta, Illinois. Sparta has a co-op team with Steelville, Illinois, which is a surprise. I talked about in the last episode, is a Sparta team that was winless last season. They went 0-9. I did say they were already improved because they went into the ball game 1-1. So there's obviously a marked improvement that they'd made. But it was also a game I said, I think Saxony's going to win probably by a couple scores, maybe 2-3 scores, in my opinion, just based on what I'd seen out of, Saxony and what I knew of Sparta. But yeah, Cody is a little bit surprised. I think we talked about in the preseason too. We kind of thought Saxony might, it'd be tough year one at the varsity level, but I thought they would have the ability maybe to coast a little bit into some of those tougher games against like Charleston, Perryville.
Yeah, that those are going to be tough. We know what Charleston and Perryville bring to the table. Saxony, a little bit of an unknown coming into this year. We saw what they did last year with a different schedule, but coming into a bye week, 2-1, all teams, to be honest with you, are gearing up for the end of the season. So, you're just trying to get better, practice each week, and first year playing in the playoffs.
Yeah, and kind of the synopsis of that game, like I said, 36-30 was the final. Sparta never led until their first possession in overtime. They trailed and were, playing catch up. They tied the game late in regulation. The kind of one-man show of the offense a little bit. Quarterback for them, Dariantes Monroe, who was the one person I highlighted previewing this game last week. He had good stats. He had pretty good numbers he put up. He was only a sophomore last year. So I figured he'd be improved and, carry a lot of the weight. I think he was their leading rusher and obviously the quarterback. So he was the guy to watch. And it seems like he really balled out. Sparta put up big numbers in the passing game. Saxony did pretty good against the run from the one stats I saw where I think they gave up somewhere in the neighborhood right around 100 yards. But Cody and I were in the middle of doing our own game as well. So the one score update that I saw early was Saxony was leading 16-0 in the second quarter. I was like, okay, yeah, this is probably going the way I thought it would. But then no, Sparta kind of flipped the script, scored a couple times, made it a back and forth half. And it was 23-16 at halftime, which is, and you look at the final score, they had 30 in the end, which has kind of been an issue. It was an issue that I know Coach Turner pointed to last week. They took on Donovan. Cody, like you and I were both there at that game. It felt like they were comfortably ahead. They had the lead. It never really felt in doubt. But they were up 28-7 at halftime. They only win that 35-7. It feels like there's some sort of maybe, I don't know, foot coming off the gas or something, or some sort of, I don't know, something happening when they go to the locker room there. That's kind of my only, big critique right now.
When you do have a core half dozen guys that play both ways too, obviously it becomes a factor whenever you get fourth quarter of these games. And we have covered a lot of different teams, Cape, Jackson, that have kids that play both ways also, but conditioning obviously becomes a factor late in those games.
Yeah, and so, tough loss. Like I said, 23-16 at halftime. Sparta just kept fighting, kept clawing back. Took the lead late, scored on their first possession, and were able to get a stop and win there. In overtime, just looking at, I don't know where to find the game at. I could not find it anywhere. I looked on like every website that people stream games on. I did find like a 2-minute highlight of just Sparta's plays, and kind of the issue to look like going on for there was just too many big plays given up in the secondary at times. They hit some screens and kind of broke those for big plays. Maybe just tackling in space, losing a couple receivers downfield on those bigger, 25, 35-yard plays. And the Sparta team was pretty athletic. They moved well in space. They got the ball out in space to their playmakers. And then quarterback Monroe, good athlete as well, lefty, just made enough plays, made plays with his feet. I mean, once again, Kai McDowell played really, really well, efficient, got the ball where it needed to be, put up big numbers again, but came up just short this week. However, like we mentioned, when we will get to them, we'll talk about later in next week's ball games. Saxony will not be on the schedule, Cody. So probably, coming off your first loss of the season, probably a good time to get a bye week in for this young team, like you said, and playing both ways. So good chance to get a break. Yeah,
and they're going to play, Marquette Catholic out of Alton, 2 weeks. Don't know much about them, but you get into the Charleston and the Perryvilles and going to be tougher games. So get into a bye week, study some film, rest up, and maybe work on some conditioning.
Yep. So we'll go to the Cape game next and then talk about our game last, Cody. So we'll talk Cape at Sikeston. Cape wins 33-7. Going into it, Cody, I was expecting maybe a little bit closer of an outcome in this one. Cape had been playing fine. They've been playing somewhat lower scoring games. Obviously, they lost Keyshawn Boyd week 1. New quarterback Aiden McGuire was kind of working his way, in the getting his confidence up a little bit week by week. But the Sikeston team seemed pretty improved. They put up big numbers week 1. They lost the week before to Dexter, but still were able to move the ball a little bit. I was expecting closer games. So I'm pretty impressed by Cape, coming away a little bit of a blowout victory there.
Yeah, momentum obviously plays a key part in these high school games. Sikeston going for it on their first drive from their own 33, 4th and 1, and then Cape able to lock them down, take over in Sikeston territory. That first drive kind of set the tone for the game.
Yeah, and that was, kind of the whole story. The story of the season really is still, for me, is Cape's defense. The Cape defense has been playing really, really well. You know what the offense is going to do. They're going to, try to pound it in between the tackles. And they had a lot of success. We'll get to that in a second. But the defense did a really good job holding a pretty good Sikeston offense in check. Only gave up 238 yards, only 104 on the ground, 134 through the air. So, Cape doing a good job on that side of the ball. A side of the ball where they lost a lot of guys last season's really, really good defense. And so, yeah, they've impressed me on that side, stopping the run. And then, you flip it over to the offense. It had been kind of the Izzy Bridges show the last few weeks. But this week, Torrance Murray, the senior, kind of really showed out. Cody, big, strong kid. Every carry, he was just dragging defenders with him. A lot of it was between the tackles. Big performance by him, 25 carries. They leaned on him, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. They lose Zaire Thomas from last season. Mm-hmm. Keyshawn Boyd goes down with injury. But it feels like they found guys to really step up and not, lose too much when it comes to production on offense.
Yeah, we thought coming into the year that it was going to be, kind of the ground and pound game, but thought it would be with Keyshawn Boyd. They prove even with Boyd out, like you said, 206 yards rushing. Murray and Bridges, combined for 41 carries there. So, Cape looks to be a team, even with Boyd out, that's going to keep it on the ground.
Yeah, and in the ball game, Jathan Spain got in the scoring column. He had 2 catches. He scored a touchdown. Martavion Robinson had a receiving touchdown. Kind of the question mark now, I guess, is the health of Aiden McGuire. I know he got banged up in the first half. He played well, 5 of 7, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. You break in a new quarterback at first 3 weeks of the season, Cody. Not the time you need to you want him to be going down here, especially, like I said, a lot of still building chemistry on that offensive side.
Yeah, for sure. You got a couple wideouts that you can lead on for sure. The big body Jathan Spain that you can throw it up to, but you got to have a healthy quarterback. But yeah, look for Cape to starting 3-0, and yeah, like you said, I expected a little more out of Sikeston. Unsure there, but we'll see how they progress this season also.
Yeah, and one other bright spot just mentioned, Joey Charlton made 2 field goals in the ball game. Both of them, sure. I want to say, somewhere in the range of 30-something. The other one's close to about 40 yards. So really good kicker. Has a big leg. So pretty cool to see in high school football kids making field goals like that. And then finally, Cody, we can get to our game, which, like I said, Cody and I do the radio for Jackson 104.7 The Bridge. If you want to listen to us talk more, it was a game that Jackson had lost. 3 straight years. Mm-hmm. They lost at home a few years back in a double overtime. Lost a close one at Edwardsville a couple years ago. Got blown out last year at Edwardsville. And a similar story, obviously the way we got there was different, but a similar story to the Cardinal Ritter game, Cody. This Jackson team playing with revenge on their mind, trying to make up for getting blown out last season. They come up with a big victory and a big turnaround from outcome last year.
Yeah, and we mentioned it in the Cape game, but setting the tone early, Jackson kind of took the opening kickoff over a 6-minute drive, 6-minute, 13-second drive that led to a 38-yard touchdown pass to Reagan. But kind of, I would say, more or less controlled the first half. Obviously, we can get into the penalties and outside factors, but thought that Jackson might pull away there at the end. But Edwardsville, give them credit, they stayed in it, hung tough.
Yeah, they were a team who had lost a lot to graduation from this past season. Cody and I, like I said, we were up there last year, and they hang the banners of all the seniors on the chain link fence around the field, and the seniors spanned about half the field length. So they had a ton of kids that were seniors last year. Very good team. So they lost a lot, but they still brought back a good core of kids. A lot of experience where it matters most, which is that quarterback. They had a senior quarterback. They have a 6'5" wide receiver who's going to Mizzou. So they had experience. They had, more receivers who were seniors out there. And I think that's kind of what helped, keep that from becoming a blowout. Like we said, Jackson, they controlled the game through most of it, especially the first half. The Indians were moving the ball pretty successfully through the air and the ground. I mean, obviously, Drew Parsons put up big numbers, but Jalen Hampton was very productive, especially on that first drive. I think they went to him 5 or 6 times, Cody. Mm-hmm. And he was also now shown the first 3 weeks. He's done a good job in the pass game as well.
Yeah, Hampton had 64 yards rushing, 49 yards receiving. Parsons, like you said, controlled it. He had 250 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. The one interception where Toma kind of fell down was held here nor there, but that was the only kind of blemish. Jackson led the entire game. I'm not going to say that it was never in jeopardy there at the end. It kind of looked like Edwardsville may escape with it, but Jackson went up 13-0. Hill Lomax came back with that touchdown, and then Memphis Maddox, we mentioned probably the play of the game, catches the ball just outside the goal line, 99-yard touchdown return, put Jackson up 19-7, kind of give him a little bit of a cushion there, but kind of our player of the game, we said at the end of the game, doing it on both sides of the ball, was Jory Toma. Mm-hmm. Had the 2 interceptions on defense, and then on the offensive side, 58 yards receiving, I have him down for. So, yeah, can do it on both sides of the ball. We don't want to forget Blaine Reagan also. He had a 5-yard rushing touchdown. He had a receiving touchdown. He had an interception, and then kind of the bigger play on defense, Brock Reagan kind of got it started there with the pick 6. So Jackson doing it all on both sides of the ball. Yeah,
both sides of the ball, played well. If you just put a look at the stats and things like that. You said Parsons, Cody, I can just get a little granular here. Like Drew Parsons has played really well these first 3 weeks. I mean, these are going to be, as far as just pure size and athleticism, the biggest and fastest kids he's going to see until, Jackson gets maybe somewhere in the playoffs and plays, somebody from the Metro Catholic Conference or something. Like his progression from, the first 3 weeks last year, how tough it was, to the first 3 weeks this year, how easy he's kind of making it look. has been the ultimate, I think, difference maker.
For sure. Doesn't look rattled, still calm in the pocket multiple times, guys breathing down his neck, and he just kind of rolls out. And they may not be completions, but last year, might have forced something.
Yeah.
This year, making the right decision more times than not.
Yeah, he's done good. And the defense, playmakers on the defensive side. Like you said, a couple of interceptions for Jory Toma. And each Reagan brother got an interception as well. Brock took his back for 60-yard pick six for him. Yeah. I know Jory made the kind of game-saving or game-ending interception both there. I don't remember where he hauled it in at, probably around the 20 or so. It was, as Edwardsville was driving, trying to take a lead and maybe win the ball game late. Jory came up there, and then at the end of the half, he came up with kind of the, throw it into the end zone heave, came up with that one as well. So the defense, gave up a few more points in this ball game, but overall, the defense has really been pretty locked tight this season. They've seen, like I keep saying, some very, very athletic guys out at receiver. They played against some pretty big offensive lines. I think all levels of the defense have pretty well stepped up and made big plays, especially when they need to.
Yeah, and you mentioned giving up some height advantage for sure in a lot of these games, but holding their own and forcing guys into some tough catches.
Yeah. So yeah, I was impressed with the win, and then obviously kind of the I would say the thing that kept it a 5-point ball game, the penalties. Whoever you want to blame it on, whether it's the officials or the players, and give credit to both or blame to both, I suppose. It has to be something that Jackson cleaned up a little bit. Like I said, it was 2 weeks ago, I think it was 16 penalties. This week it was up over 20. So that is that is pretty much the only critique at the moment. Like everything else is working. The special teams I felt like got figured out this week. Took care of the ball. It's just the penalties. The penalties have gotten a little bit out of control, Cody.
Yeah, you're going to have some of those, holding outside the jersey. It's some of those on the offensive line, but you can players, officials, whatever you want to blame, but anytime you get over 20 penalties, some of them are warranted, and you just try to clean it up, try to be smart about how you're blocking and the downfield. Hampton, there at the end, kind of just give the guy a shoulder, got caught blindside block. But yeah, Jackson clean up some of those and give credit to the coaching staff. They try these in-game, changes, but they'll clean that up. I have full confidence, Coach Nesbitt and those guys, they're going to clean that up and get into conference play. You'll see a lot cleaner team here.
Yeah, then once again, if you're being penalized that much and still getting wins against Cardinal Ritter, Ballard, and Edwardsville, you got a good team.
Yeah, mentally tough. That's something you could definitely say about Jackson this year, that you don't see guys with their heads down. Next play is kind of the motto there.
And you mentioned, talking earlier about conditioning. It feels like that's not an issue either with this team. They feels like everybody's moving full speed at the end of the ball game. Even guys playing both ways. For sure. Jackson has more kids playing both ways this year. I guess that's something else to note. In really recent memory, Blaine Reagan has played a decent amount both ways. Jory Toma's played a decent amount both ways. Memphis Maddox will play both ways. A lot of kids. Bryson Wessel on the line of scrimmage will play both ways. Gavin Shin. So it feels like, once again, they have the depth necessary, but they are getting the really, really talented kids out there to make plays, put them in position. And then, once again, just shout out to Memphis Maddox. That was awesome. I don't remember the last time Jackson's had a kickoff return for a touchdown off the top of my head.
You can tell each time that he wants to. He's catching them. Caught a couple that have barely been in the end zone, and he wants to run it out. You could tell that one could have went in the end zone. He could have let it go into the end zone, but caught it at the one and returned it all the way. Yeah,
that was awesome. Incredible play. Kid's got track speed, as we know. A lot of very, very fast kids on Jackson. And then I guess Boyd Langford was out with injury this ball game. We'll see where his health is at and if he's back next week. And then the other question mark, kind of Jalen Hampton, not really sure exactly what happened. Like you mentioned, he kind of peeled back to make a block and then went down and didn't come back in the last, I don't know what that was, probably 5 minutes of game time. Yeah. So I don't know. We'll see where he's at injury-wise, but might just mean more Memphis Maddox, which I feel confident in thus far this season.
For sure.
So that covers our football from this Friday.
Get into next week games.
Yeah, go for it.
So Cape, they're going to have Poplar Bluff next. Poplar Bluff, we mentioned briefly, 0-3 on the season. So Cape will have them next. And then the big game, the other SEMO Conference team we didn't touch on much, but Jackson is at Farmington, who's also 3-0. And obviously Tatum Tinsley's leading them to a very good season so far. 3 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown this week, Poplar Bluff. So kind of a do-it-all quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's going to be an interesting ball game, right? You got Coach Brent Eckley leading Farmington. I'm sure a lot of people are very, very interested to see how it goes with, like I said, Hall of Famer, led Jackson to their only state title in school history. And they look pretty good so far. I mean, you could say, hey, they haven't played Cardinal Ritter per se, but they are averaging 52.7 points a game. They're only giving up 20 points a game, undefeated. Like you said, Tatum Tinsley at quarterback, throwing it everywhere, running over people. He's a big, strong, athletic kid, multi-sport athlete, very, very talented kid. So it'll be interesting. Jackson has beat Farmington 14 straight seasons. A lot of those due to Coach Eckley being over on the Indian sideline. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, the defensive backs, I think, are going to be really challenged again like they were this week against Edwardsville because, is looking at a couple minutes of Farmington play. It's what you remember if you're a Jackson fan or if you're a Jackson rival that had to watch several years of Coach Eckley. He's going to spread you out 3 wide, 4 wide, 5 wide, a lot of quarterback design runs. And they're just going to throw it all over the place. And I watched one drive of their game against St. Clair, and it was the confident, just throw it around offense, get your receivers in space. They had a 4th and 8 from plus territory, didn't blink, just went for it, picked up 25 yards and kept it moving. So the defense will definitely be challenged, and, Jackson's offense has been playing well, so hopefully they can keep that up and expecting a good ball game. I mean, even without Coach Eckley there, this has been pretty competitive, close games between Jackson and Farmington the last few years. So we'll see. Should be a good one.
Yeah, and at their place. So Jackson continues on the road, and you had these down as top 2 teams in the conference. So,
yeah,
their Cape will have their say by the end of it, but obviously Cape, Jackson, Farmington competing for best team in the conference.
Yep. And then let's take a look at some of what has gone on this week. We'll jump through all the different sports here between Cape, Jackson, Saxony, and Notre Dame. We'll go sport by sport as far as recapping volleyball. This past week, Tuesday, Jackson looked really, really good again this year, volleyball. Last season, I think they won 33 games, and they look like they're on pace to get back up close to that number. They had a SEMO Conference game on Tuesday. They shut out Poplar Bluff, dominant. Had extended they hadn't gone a set without losing for 7 straight games at that point. But another team that looks really good right now, Cape Central. They beat Dexter 3-1. Dexter, usually a pretty solid team in the SEMO Conference, so that's a good win. Cape staying undefeated there. Later in the week, they beat New Madrid in a straight sets, 3-0 there as well. So Tigers look pretty good. Going into Dig for Life over this past weekend. Saxony, they played St. Vincent. St. Vincent, very good team, coming off a run to state, and St. Vincent swept them 3-0. This past Wednesday, September 10th, Notre Dame got in on the action. They went down to Scott City, got a sweep there, and Saxony hosted Sikeston, beat them 3-0. Then you got into tournament play. There was pool play going on here in Cape Girardeau. Saxony, Notre Dame, Cape were all taking part in the Dig for Life tournament over at SEMO. And then Jackson went up north to Rockwood Summit, playing in a very, very tough tournament up there. Saw a lot of very, very good competition. Let's talk about them specifically over the 2-day stretch. First game they played against St. Pius X, the reigning state champs in Class 4. They have one of the best individual players in the state of Missouri on their team. Very good match. Jackson lost the first set, 25-21, came back, won 30-28, and 25-16 to get the win, 2-1. Swept Francis Howell, who's consistently one of the best teams in the state and especially in the St. Louis area. Swept St. Michael's out of Columbia 2-0. Dropped their first game of the season, playing St. Lee Summit West, who's a very, very good, consistent winner in Class 5. I think I wrote down they've been in 2 Final Fours the last 5 years. So lost that one 2-1. But then Jackson bounced back, beat Nixa, who's one of the best programs in the state, and especially down there in southwest Missouri. Beat them 2-0. And, great showing by the Indians. I have no reason to believe that they are not kind of far and away the best volleyball program in Southeast Missouri. Even though these other teams in our area have had success, Jackson looks very, 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 very good right now. So Coach Murley has them tuned up. I talked to Coach Murley. He was very excited, earlier this summer about the team, and they look good. So I don't have any reason to question where they're at. As far as results go, I know Saxony, I think they got second in the silver bracket at Dig for Life, and then Cape came up second place in, I guess, the gold bracket, whatever the main tournament there at Dig for Life was. They swept Park Hill Central. They beat Hillsboro in 3 sets. They swept Leopold in the semifinals, and then dropped the championship game to Winona. Winona, very, very good small school. They won Class 1 state title a season ago. So Cape came up short there. But overall, positive stuff for Cape. I talked to Coach Summer McCauley, Purdue, earlier this summer as well. That was a team that lost a lot of production off last year squad, but very happy with where they're at. They seem to be going in the right direction. She said she's happy with the momentum where they're at and the progress they've made in the first, not even a month of the season, but first few weeks of the season. Obviously, a lot of the stats I saw, they were led by Sydney Miller, the SEMO commit. So they're playing really, really well. I expect them to be very competitive. Later in the season, we'll see the SEMO Conference tournament. I think it's going to still be at the Sportsplex where it usually is at. And so I would not surprise me if it is Cape and Jackson in the championship there in that one. Let's see here. We'll drop down to boys soccer. A little bit, not much action in boys soccer this past week. Jackson just lost to DeSmet 4-1. DeSmet, really, really good team. But they came down to Jackson, knocked them off. Saxony played a couple of games this past week. High-scoring games, by the way, Saxony. They beat Fredericktown 5-2, and then they lost up at St. Pius 6-4, and then Cape dropped one to Farmington 4-1. Now, on the flip side, there was a lot of softball games going on. So this past week, Saxony softball also big swings, offensive-wise and final score-wise. They beat Cape 17-1. They beat Sikeston 21-4, and then they lost over at Chaffee, who's a phenomenal team, lost there 12-0. Notre Dame beat Neelyville 14-4. Jackson went on the road, beat a good Marquette team 2-1. Came back down here, Cape County showdown. Jackson knocked off Cape 11-1 in that one. And then over the weekend, Jackson went up to Troy and went 1-1. They lost in 8 innings to the home team Troy, and then beat Odessa 11-3. Also, Cape bounced back after losing to Jackson and beat Naylor 9-6. So a lot of action there. Some good showings. Cody, one result that kind of jumped out, changed into a little bit different sport, is girls golf. Well, I'll say, as far as individuals go, Julia Schlitt finished second last year in state. She has been pretty dominant thus far this season. I think she's been under par every round she's played. So she's looked very, very good. And the Jackson girls golf team as a group has been off to a big start, and they played a match against Notre Dame that was very, very lopsided as well.
Yeah, anytime you're going to, 30 or 40 strokes in golf, a lot of times it comes down to your number 3, number 4 teams. But Jackson has proved that, top to bottom, they're the best team around.
Yeah, good depth. As a team, they finished second up in Rockwood. Julia Schlitt, I mentioned, she got second overall. She went under par. But like you said, the depth is really there. Madison Thrower, Ava Moody, Olivia Lacey, they all medal in the top 15. We mentioned they played Notre Dame. They went head-to-head against Notre Dame. Won it by 57 strokes, Cody. That's
297 to 240.
And once again, led by Julia Schlitt and Allie Burrows. They combined to go 1 under par Notre Dame got good production, though. Grayson Maurer, Lucy Barnett, both golfers I expect to see, whether it's in a team or individual setting at the state tournament. They finished second there in that pairing. And then Jackson hosted a very, very busy week of golf. They hosted a quad with Farmington, Cape, and Notre Dame. Jackson won that pretty big as well. 148 to the next best team being Notre Dame, 175, and Farmington and Cape coming in fourth. And they went and played up at Belleville. Kind of a different. I tried to look into it a little bit more. A different type of thing. It was actually a Illinois versus Missouri tournament of sorts. So they had, I think, 6 teams from Missouri and 6 teams from Illinois playing each other, and the Illinois squad came out on top by about 10, 15 strokes, something along those lines. Looks like getting into the last group here, girls tennis. Another pretty busy week of girls tennis. Saxony Lutheran hosted a singles tournament there. They had their players finished well overall. Hannah Pruitt, I believe, won there in singles tennis, and then her and Katya Rust played really, really well in doubles together as well. So I've been, let's see. Yeah, a lot of the teams in the area have been playing really, really well. Saxony has played well. They beat Fredericktown 9-0 as a team, beat Cape 7-2 as a team. And then Jackson obviously has been playing well in girls tennis as well. They beat Farmington head-to-head 8-1. Notre Dame looks good. They beat Charleston 8-1, beat Festus 7-2. So it's going to be really competitive. I think they're playing a lot of tournaments against each other. They're going to be they're going to be here in Jackson playing a tournament this upcoming weekend. So busy week of tennis. And then I guess, let me think actually. No, the last thing I have on here, cross country. The one result that I saw that had a team really post, get into specifics that I saw was up at Forest Park in St. Louis. Jackson went up there. They had pretty good showing, especially on the boys' side. Aiden Edbalski came in 10th overall. Nathan Meisner came in 29th. Chase Wendell 35th. Carter Sander 41st. So as a team, they finished up in the top 5. Good showings out of those guys. That's a huge meet. My sisters ran cross country a long time ago, and I went up there and watched them a couple times. That is a spectacle to see that race. There's just feels like a million kids just everywhere. There's just kids running over every inch of the park. It was wild to see. And then the high finisher for Jackson on the girls' side, Hallie King, only a freshman, came in 25th overall. Finished a 5K in 20 minutes and 14 seconds. So that's good showing by her.
16 minutes even.
Yeah.
Finished 10th.
Yeah. No, I don't think I have that. I don't think I have that in the bag anymore.
I don't know how many people were in a 5K out there, but it's pretty good.
I don't think I'm finishing 16 even. Yeah, like Aiden Nabolsky did. No, I'm well past those days. I don't think I ever had those days. Actually, now that you mentioned it, I don't think that was actually a thing at all. And looking forward to the coming week. Once again, busy as well. We'll talk about we'll mention football again here at the end, but volleyball. Jackson is going to be playing a couple games. A big one here, hosting Cape on the 16th. Jackson volleyball sits at 11-1 right now. And then they go to Notre Dame on the 18th. So a couple of county matchups. Cross country, Cape Central's hosting an invitational there. So all the local teams will be there. And looking forward to girls golf. They play a couple more matches. They're going up to St. John and Farmington. Boys soccer for Jackson will be hosting Northwest, who is, I believe, a district opponent. The boys team sits at 2-2. For Jackson softball, they'll be playing 3 games this week. They got Farmington, they got Northwest, Francis Howell, a doubleheader at home Saturday. And then Cape Central is hosting a swimming tournament there as well, invitational, I believe at their own complex, not at SEMO. So that'll be on the 19th. And then Jackson girls tennis is going to be very busy. They play 4 matches, or they play in 3 matches, and then they have a tournament over the weekend. They host Cape, they host Poplar Bluff, they host Charleston. Then on the 19th, Jackson is hosting their own doubles tournament. So we'll have a lot of local teams in that as well. Cody, do you have Cape's schedule for the week? You can go run through that.
Volleyball is at Bernie, and then you mentioned at Jackson. Cross country has the Cape Invitational. Girls golf, they're at They're at St. John in Farmington.
Yeah, they'll be playing that same tournaments as Jackson. Yeah.
Boys soccer, they host Sikeston. Soccer team's 2-3 on the year. Softball has Sikeston, Kelly, and North County, 16th, 17th, 18th. So pretty busy week for them also. They're at that Cape Invitational for swimming also. Girls tennis, they have Charleston on Monday. They have Edwardsville, and then in that Jackson doubles tournament that you were talking about with Jackson. That's pretty much all I got for Cape there.
Yeah, and then Notre Dame volleyball, usually a very good group. I'm interested to see how they look. Like I mentioned, they have the one opportunity this upcoming week. They're hosting Jackson. It's always a good one. Big rivalry there between those two. Those girls, have seen each other, have been playing with and against each other their entire lives, Cape and Jackson. And then they're the only team that's going to be different in cross country this week. They will be at the Missouri Southern Stampede over in Joplin on the 20th. So long way to go. And then also, they're going to be at St. John and Farmington as well with Cape and Jackson, but they're also going to go over to Carbondale playing the Terrier 2-Woman Challenge. Not sure exactly what that entails, but the boys soccer team sits at 3-1. They have a couple of games on the road at Saxony and at Farmington, so it'll be an interesting matchup over at Saxony. Last year, Saxony knocked off Notre Dame for, I believe, the first time ever. So Notre Dame, I'm sure, will have a lot of revenge in their minds. Softball will be on the road. They play 3 games, and then they finish with a tournament up in Jeff City. So they'll be very, very busy as well. They'll be swimming at Cape. And then the tennis team, like I mentioned, they'll be playing at Jackson on the 15th. And then the 16th, they're going to be on the road. Tough game, or tough matchup, that is, against Kennett. And then Cody, you can close us out with Saxony. What all does Saxony have going on?
Yeah, Saxony volleyball. They have Woodland on the 16th and at Valley on the 18th. Cross country's at that Cape Invitational. Boys soccer for Saxony, they're going to host Notre Dame on Tuesday, and then at Dexter on Thursday. Softball has 2 home games. On the 16th, they play Fredericktown. 18th, they play Kelly. And then the girls' tennis for Saxony has North County on Monday, Dexter on Tuesday, and then they're at that Jackson doubles tournament. So very busy week for them.
A lot of action, yeah. A lot of action, a lot of teams. Like I said, go check them out. Football obviously is on the mind of most people this time of year, which I understand. But there's a lot of good local sports going on outside of football. It's going to be a very, very busy week at a lot of schools, so go check them out. And like we said earlier, we have a couple of big football games going on this upcoming Friday. There's 2 big football games because the third team that has football here in Cape County, Saxony, does not have a game scheduled, so they're going to be having the week off, kind of timely. We're already a third of the way through the season, so they're going to have a bye week before going back on the road to Illinois. That'll be good for them. Like we talked about, they're a team that has a lot of guys play both ways, a lot of young guys. So it'll be good to, have a week off, recover a little bit, get back in the lab, try to work on some things. And I have no doubt that they'll be very, very solid coming back out next week, but we'll talk about them then when we get it to there. And Cody, you talked about it in earlier. Cape will be hosting Poplar Bluff.
Yeah.
Bluff struggled this season, so the way I see it, I think this is another good opportunity for Cape to, keep working on things, keep building things. And if I'm picking, I'm definitely going to lean Cape in this one.
For sure. Yeah, Bluff's 0-3. They're struggling, but you can't let it be a down game if you're Cape. I mean, it is a home game and obviously a conference game, rivalry game. Poplar Bluff, Cape is usually a good game. Look forward to Bluff coming in with something to prove, trying to get their first win of the season, and then the big one there, Jackson at Farmington that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, Jackson at Farmington. It's going to be interesting, just because, like I said, on the, interpersonal part of it, the game against Coach Eckley, kind of what a lot of people see it as. And I'm sure he is fine with that, because if people are distracted talking about that, then maybe that's one more mind off of how good his team actually is, and they are very, very good. This is going to be another tough game for Jackson. That's something they've gotten used to. I think first month of the season. I do want to say over on the Cape side, the only question for me is where's the health of Aiden McGuire at? He's looked good. He's been throwing the ball well, finding his targets. But Landon Best, I think the backup, he came in also very, very competent. It was a quarterback battle in the offseason, so I'm sure they have confidence in both those guys. But yeah, getting back to, the Farmington game. I mean, if I was picking, I would lean Jackson, but I feel like this is going to be, maybe, well, we'll see. But I feel like it could be a little bit of a shootout.
Yeah, and Jackson's offense certainly proved themselves. Farmington's offense, had a pretty good game. So, yeah, I look for it to be may not be high scoring. See if the defenses show up, but definitely has the capability to be that. And then obviously an important game for Cape also with Farmington being in their district. Mm-hmm. The only 2 undefeated teams left in that district. So, a lot of eyes will be on both those games.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting. I'm excited. I mean, Cody and I will be at the game between Jackson and Farmington on the radio. If you want to listen to us, go to 104.7 once again. Check us out. Ryan Winkler, also working for the station with us. He'll be streaming the game against Poplar Bluff, Cape Central Sports. Look him up on YouTube. And he'll be on the radio as well. I'm excited. It should be a good matchup. It's been tough. Always going up to Farmington. They play really, really well at home. It's going to be a completely different look for the last several years of what we've been seeing, them under center, them running out of a lot of option looks. So it'll be a different look, but they're going to be tough. They usually have, really good athletes. Cody and I see them in basketball as well. They've always got talented kids, athletic kids. So it's going to be tough. I know Coach Eckley's a good coach. He'll put them in right positions and make them, the best versions of themselves on the football field. And then as far as, the Jackson side of things, Cody, I mean, the penalties, take care of the penalties, keep special teams at a high level, and just keep doing what they've been doing. Take care of the football. They've run the ball well. Drew Parsons has been finding guys open. He's been smart about, not taking hits, not putting the ball in danger. Defensively, the defensive backs looked really good this past week, obviously getting 4 interceptions. And I think they're going to be challenged again. And, we saw a lot of Coach Eckley. His teams are going to want to put it in the air quite a bit. So they're going to be in a lot of positions where they're manned up on guys, seeing 4 or 5 receivers out there. So just, keep sticking with guys. Jackson has the speed and athleticism out there. And then I would just say, do a little bit better job containing the quarterback. Yeah. Dale Weaver got away from him a little bit at times this past week, kind of brought them back with his legs a lot. So that'd be the one place to look.
And Tinsley, similar as Weaver, a big, strong, physical running back. And then you got to obviously watch out for the misdirection plays. Jackson likes to gang tackle. They like to all attack the ball. You got to be careful that you don't lose sight of your man downfield because I'm sure Eckley going to throw some curveballs in there.
Right, exactly. Because, it's going to be important to him, obviously, as well. Every game is, but this one has a little bit more pizzazz to it, I think. And also already Cody and Jackson, you have it pulled up over there, I saw, in a good spot when it comes to districts at the moment.
Not sure how, but Seckman is currently has the most points. They're 2-1. And Jackson is currently the 2 seed in their district with 39 points at 3-0. So, Jackson currently sits at the 2 seed. Whenever you look over to the Class 5 District 1, Farmington is in first. Technically, they're tied at 48 points apiece. Farmington and Central at both 3-0 atop that district, and then next is Fox at 1-2. So. Should be Farmington and Central there at the top of that one.
Yeah, that's a 2-team race, it feels like. So I'm interested to see, those teams will probably take one, or they're going to face each other. They might take 1 or 2 more losses to see how it shakes out. But I expect that to be the 1 and 2 when it comes to maybe, or at least that I expect that to be the championship matchup whenever we get, a couple months down the road here.
Yeah, it's important there though because that district does have 7 teams, so the 1 seed would be the only team that gets a bye there. So that is an important regular season matchup also.
Yeah, and then for Jackson, you know what they say, Cody? Beating Fox by 1 score and beating Northwest High School is much more impressive than beating Edwardsville and Cardinal Ritter.
I guess it's just maybe a multiplier because Northwest is in the district. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't understand it. I understand nothing that they do at the organizational administrative level for Amisha. Then the Saxony Lutheran Crusaders, they currently sit in first place in their district. They're 2-1. Charleston's 2-1. Haytie's 2-1. Portageville's 1-2, Malden's 0-3. So they're in a good spot. They, like I said, based on points, are a little bit ahead of Charleston and Hayti, even though they have the same record. Obviously, Saxony and Charleston will be playing each other at some point this season. So that will be, I believe, that's the only team they play in their district. So that'll obviously be very, very important in how they kind of do the rest of the way. But being able to potentially be a 1 seed your first year at the varsity level be a pretty nice way to start things off. Be a pretty good accomplishment for them. Yeah,
and you're going to play presumably the winner of that Portageville Malden game. So can the 1 seed has a pretty good shot at making the district championship game there.
Yeah. They'll obviously will know what Charleston has when they play Saxony. And Hayti is always a very, very tough team. They're always very, very athletic, really talented, really well coached. So should be a good time. Should be interesting when we get closer to playoff time. Like we said, only a third of the way through football season, so something to keep track of. But there is a long, long way to go to that point. But a lot of teams in our area kind of position themselves well when it comes to eventually the postseason.
Sure.
All right. Well, Cody, you got anything else you want to talk about?
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. Let's see. Anything else we want to shout out, ramble on about? I guess when it comes to a couple kids at the college level, doing things that I've seen thus far this season. I know Cape graduate Ella Vogel played at not the Show Me Center, Hauk against SEMO the other day, and SEMO also being led right now by a Jackson graduate, Katie St. John. She's been starting as a freshman, been playing really, really well. I know she got freshman of the week a few weeks ago in the OVC, so they've been playing well. SEMO beat Iowa in volleyball. That seems wild, impressive. They beat them at home, so that was very cool. Connor Tollison playing at the next level from Mizzou. They've been playing well. So a lot of kids at the next level. I just saw before we got on that Maya Domi, and a Jackson graduate in soccer at SEMO, just scored her first career goal. So a lot of kids that former athletes here in the area doing good things at the next level too. So pretty cool to see. But outside of that, I think that pretty much does it for us. Fun week of football this past week. Fun week of sports around the entire area across the board. And like I said, Cody and I will be on the call at Farmington for that ball game. Normal kickoff time, 7 p.m. Find us on the radio or online, 104.7 The Bridge. Check out the Cape game. I know Ryan Winkler will be on the call for that, and Chandler Jansen. They will be at home. So if you don't want to make the drive up to see Jackson and Farmington play, hang around here and see if Cape can stay undefeated in SEMO Conference and knock off Poplar Bluff, which is always very fun to do. So yeah, best of luck to those guys. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We appreciate all you guys watching, listening. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that stuff to get updates whenever we do. Check us out on social media. I'm always just sharing other all the teams in the area's schedules and all their posts and all the results and stuff like that. So keep up with us there as well. And yeah, we appreciate all of you guys. We thank you as always, and we will see you in the next one. Take it easy.